Horizon. It's boring as shit.
Hello, everyone. This is Greg, your host of Goddamn Gamecube, and this is Season 4. Follow Goddamn Gamecube on social for updates on the show, and subscribe to us on YouTube for bonus video content. Thank you, and enjoy today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Goddamn Gamecube. Greg and Riley are your hosts today. And today we're going to be talking about Horizon Zero Dawn. I affectionately refer to this as Horizon Zero Fun. And Riley, I can't wait to talk about this one as I eye roll. So please get us started. Keep us on track. Let's do this. We'll be as professional as we can. Go ahead.
Yes, we will. So this first one, I think we're gonna be reviewing both games. We're gonna have another episode for the sequel. But this first one, I'm a little bit more complimentary towards personally. I'd like to start us off by saying, so this was released in 2017. It is an action RPG with some survival elements developed by Guerrilla Games, who previously worked on the Killzone series, and published by our beloved Sony Interactive Entertainment. So I believe the way this came about was that the team was feeling somewhat creatively burnt out on Killzone. We did 3 or 4 of them, and they wanted to create sort of a more, because those games are very kind of what would you say, like grim and kind of Gears of War.
They were very influential games too.
Yeah.
Especially the first one.
Yeah, so it's kind of, there's the heat was on to develop a fresh IP. They wanted to make a more colorful universe that you would want to spend time in.
As you and I look at each other and laugh.
A little wink here. The entire studio was offered an opportunity to pitch their concepts, which I think is a cool way to go about it, including story, art, and mechanics. And the art director, I believe his name was Jan Bart van Beek.
Yep.
He pitched and what became Horizon as we know it, as far as the setting and all the robotic creatures and all that stuff. And I thought, I don't know if you heard anything about this, where they went back and forth on actually going through with this concept, because Ninja Theory announced a project called Enslaved, which was written by Alex Garland, who's done a couple movies, and performed by Andy Serkis. There's a character that was like motion captured.
Kind of like an underappreciated game that
you'd say so?
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about it at some point. I'm not sure, but it's a cool game.
Yeah. So there's a lot of similar elements, I guess you would say. And so they temporarily shelved Horizon because this was coming out, and they were going to make like an 1800s horror or monster game.
Ooh.
And then that Game of the Order 1886 was coming out, so we're like, all right, we're more passionate about Horizon. Someone else is, it's inevitable that there's going to be some, it was kind of like a Hellblade God of War situation, like let's just put out what we're most passionate about. So do you want to quickly, I think the setting is considered a spoiler. Do we wanted to put a little spoiler warning and then say what's going on with it? So you told me that this was a surprise, and I kind of like, so this game is post-apocalyptic, right? Very overgrown, a lot of decaying infrastructure and stuff. And so basically right from the start, I was kind of like, so is this just a world, or is this supposed to be our world? And I think like in the sort of the supplemental materials you pick up over the course of the game, I kind of pieced together that it's supposed to be America somewhere, right?
Well, you and I were talking about this. Well, keep in mind, I played this game either on release or very close.
Yeah.
And you didn't play this up until, a couple of months ago?
Yes.
So
earlier this year.
When I played Horizon Zero Dawn, I thought one of the most compelling parts of the game was when they reveal it takes place in the United States. Okay. Where for most of the game, I didn't know. I don't know. Maybe I'll ask this to the audience. Like, am I stupid? Like, was that obvious?
I think it's supposed to be a twist. I just think they maybe, for me at least, tipped their hand a little bit too early.
Really?
I think, because so you see, like, one of the first things that happens is Aloy is the main character. She's a little girl and she's exploring a ruin, right? And it's way more futuristic. than anything else on the surface, and it's I'm like, okay, so is this just a fictional post-apocalypse, or is it the real thing? And is it going to be like a Fallout thing where it's like, oh, is actually, a location in real life the whole time? So in any case, set in post-apocalyptic United States, Utah, Colorado, and Wyoming, I believe. Horizon follows a young outcast named Aloy. It's kind of it's descended into a tribal sort of structure. There's different tribes that you encounter over the course of these games. Aloy is a outcast of the Nora tribe, and she is attempting to uncover her mysterious past, prove herself to the various tribes that live in the region, and in general survive an otherwise inhospitable landscape dominated by robotic animals and dinosaurs and stuff like that. They just kind of take the shape of I guess animals that went extinct.
I mean, my first impression of this game was I was trying to like rack my brain if I ever seen that kind of thing before.
And the commercial was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I do think like to this game's like we are going to make fun of these games quite a bit, but I think a positive of the game, I don't think I'd ever quite seen a game where you saw herds of animals that were actually robots but acting like animals.
Right.
Like, oh, are these supposed to be deer or cows or, or predator birds and stuff? I had never really seen that. So I at least thought that was interesting.
No, I think it's definitely, that's one of the big positives of the series is the concept of that.
Yeah.
Right. It's just when you kind of get into the everything else, it's a little rocky, let's say. So I think that the way both games look extremely colorful, varied. The first one is, I think, a manageable map size.
Yep.
I think it's success. I find that region of America very beautiful, like the nature at least, and I thought they successfully captured it. So that's a positive, I would say. If you're going to be stuck there, you may as well enjoy the scenery, right?
Right.
So there is dynamic weather, which I liked. Welcome inclusion that contemporaries like Halo Infinite seem to lack. So I have to give credit where it's due.
Yeah, I'm shaking my head.
Okay, so I have maybe my first little grievance here.
Go ahead.
There is a day-night cycle, right? But every time I was near a body of water or a lake at night, there would be a daytime reflection.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
So that was, I don't know if it was just me, but it was a little weird because it was like, oh, look at this beautiful, Colorado evening. You see all the stars on the night sky. And then over there, it's this big orange blob. Yeah. It's like, wait a second.
What's happening?
It is kind of weird how, this is kind of like how Death Stranding does it too, but it's like, it's a lot more condensed than the region is. Like you go from like a mesa to a swampland, or a marshland pretty abruptly.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of like kind of gradient, like a great game Hollow Knight did.
Yes.
That was a positive aspect of that. Okay, so here's another bone of contention, perhaps.
Go ahead.
Maybe not a full-blown grievance, but something I'd like to point out very quickly. So the character models, they look okay, but you know what the problem is that everyone has those fucking Santa Claus eyes.
They're kind of hollow and look right through you.
Yeah,
right?
but they have that weird gleam, and it's just like these people are living harsh lives.
Yeah,
this is the first kind of, it's right in the eyes. This is where the first kind of pinhole appears for me. In general, furthering that thought, the dialogue is not very good. There is a lot of inconsistent voice acting. I think maybe poor direction.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of these people are trying as hard as they can. I think Ashley Burch, who plays Aloy, is great. And I need to point out, so you, me, and your brother Nick watched the first episode of the Resident Evil TV show, starring Lance Reddick, who voices and motion captures the character Silence.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
And I think he's good at everything. Like he sells this garbage like nobody's business, as far as I'm concerned. And so all these tribes and all that, like the world building is like, I feel like in general lacks a certain. I was talking to Nick earlier about. I think Bionicle has a more kind of compelling tribal structure.
Yeah,
because they all feel unique, and they correspond with different areas of the map and stuff like that. And in this game, in both of these games, the tribes are kind of like. Yeah, these ones are they're at least you can like. There's the Sun tribe and the worker, the kind of the dwarvish.
It's
tribe.
strange, right? I feel like all these tribes just. I know it's a video game and I know it's fiction, but they just feel like fake. Like it doesn't feel believable.
Yeah, it's well, we'll get into why as we go on, but in terms of
something missing,
in terms of like I think great because I think it's interesting that some of them have. Like they have headdresses that are like circuit boards and stuff, or some of them have, like Silence in particular I think he was a shaman of some kind. So he has like cabling going through his skin. That's kind of interesting at least. But in terms of memorability, I think in 10 years, I won't be able to name one of these. So, that's something I needed to address. The fall of mankind to machines also like as you, especially those, the really big ones you find destroyed in the countryside.
Yeah.
They're very like Matrixy. We keep coming back to the Matrix this season.
Yeah, we've talked about the Matrix a lot.
But a lot of that looked kind of like it took a cue from that.
Yeah.
You felt. It's kind of in concept.
Well, I mean, also it's just they don't really give you a lot of background about like why or how humans were wiped out so fast, but they give you the impression that it was just kind of like at a snap of a finger, everyone's dead.
Yeah, it's. I mean, obviously you learn more about it as you go along, but yeah. And like you said, the creature designs very imaginative for the most part. I think some of them even evoked like Shadow of the Colossus, like with the tall necks, the giraffe or Brontosaurus, whatever you want to. Call them. I like that a lot. And I think a lot of them also look pretty believable, like not that different from the weird ones you see at like Boston Dynamics or whatever, like that weird musculature they have. It's odd, but
I feel like the creature design, if we're talking about we're talking about character aesthetics, monster aesthetics.
Yeah.
The I called them robots, but they're called machines in the game. The machine animals is probably the most redeeming part of the aesthetic design of this game. Probably.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. And one sort of thing that it was just a small note I had about aesthetics. Big part of this game is aiming with a bow.
Yeah.
Right. And this game has a little lush kind of. There's a lot of tall grass that you can hide in. It's supposed to look like her hair, I guess, like that you hide in the red grass.
Yep.
So even if you're in like the normal grass, when you aim upward, the grass gets in your way. And there's like, this becomes like such a problem later because there's like flying creatures and stuff. It's like, fuck, get out of my way. I don't know. Like a camera is a make or break thing in a lot of these situations. So with that said, let's get into the gameplay, shall we?
Yeah.
So originally, apparently, they planned to have a co-op feature.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Abandoned when they felt like it would sacrifice too much detail, rendering and whatnot, and keeping it at a stable frame rate, I guess. For me, so there's a lot of crafting in these games. For me, this feels very tedious. I like that there are ammo shortcuts, at least when we bring up the wheel. But it feels very like ridiculous and immersion breaking that she can just do it in the middle of a battle.
Right.
So it's like, why is it even there?
Right.
Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think it's one of these gameplay mechanics where there are no winners.
Yeah.
Where I think there
only losers.
No. I what I mean by that is there are too many ammo types.
Yeah.
And monsters, machines, whatever, who cares? They take a lot of monsters tend to take a decent amount of ammo to put down.
Yes.
Which means you're going to be crafting ammo a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of these problems where there is an underlying inherent problem with how the game is structured, and there's no way to get around it.
Maybe if they like tweak the math a little bit, where it's like,
exactly.
I'm not like, oh, this game's too hard, but like in terms of, it reminds me a lot of if you play Oblivion on the normal setting, even if you're fighting like a generic skeleton or whatever, it takes a few too many swings.
Yeah.
Even if
I think what would have had to happen was spear combat would have had to be the main thing, and your gadgets would have had to be very secondary.
Right.
But because it's the other way around, and all of your
I would say the bow is like the primary weapon.
Because your bow and all the other stuff, the slingshot or whatever, all of that stuff is so mandatory. You can't get away from having to craft ammo all the time.
No, you do it a lot. You can sort of improve, I guess, your carrying capacity and stuff, and as you go on, you can upgrade your weapons. But I felt like just like it with the math just didn't work even out for me, I guess. I think so. Yeah, you mentioned. So we got the bows. There's a couple different ones. There's like the bomb slingshots, the trip casters, which generate wires to trip up enemies, and the rope casters, which tie them down. So did you use these other weapons very much? Or
so what started happening was at the beginning I did, but then when I realized I could just let it rip with it's not called the slingshot. What is it called? The bomb slings or that sort of thing. When I started realizing I could just like absolutely launch bombs like with that sort of weapon, I used it all the time.
Because you can look up like their elemental weaknesses and stuff and what's better against certain
that. Like, and I don't know, maybe I should have used like trip casters and stuff more, but when I could just let it rip, I just started ripping, with the slingshot weapons.
Yeah, I mean, because this is when the combat pops off, it's very fast paced.
Yep.
So when it comes to the trapping in these games, you can kind of develop your skill trees as you go on a little bit with this. But in terms of those kind of weapons or tools that take a little bit longer to execute your plan, it's just like a little tedious to me. I think originally they were going to implement like a in Metal Gear when you have the balloons to lift out resources and stuff.
I forget what those are called.
The Fulton, the Fulton balloons. Yeah, I think they were going to implement that at some point. But in terms of like it does have that Zelda problem where it's like she's carrying all these like ridiculous resources and we don't see it at all on her character model and stuff. I think to your point, the melee combat is it feels almost like an afterthought in these games.
Yeah, it's very clunky.
All you really have in the first one, so there's no targeting system, which is a big problem for melee combat. And all you really have in this one are your light and heavy attacks. And it just doesn't feel good to me.
No, I have problems beyond just that. There's a strange mechanic where if you charge up a heavy attack and hit a monster with it, it will fall over, and then you can critical strike them. But there's a problem where if a monster is doing a certain animation, it just won't work.
Right.
Or if they're in the middle of getting up, it just won't. You can't knock them over. It's really strange because there's no targeting. If you don't hit them in the right animation, it won't work.
And is it maybe that like so they have a kind of like when they're doing that type of attack, they're invulnerable to like stagger or something?
I have no idea. It's just too sloppy.
Yeah, if it was a little clearer, maybe it would have worked better. Same thing I feel about the sneaking in the first one. It felt kind of buggy to me.
Yep.
There's a lot of enemies seeing you through walls in terms of because like the AI is sensing you on the other side of the wall. It's not like a character is seeing you. So in addition to the machines, you also fight like enemy humans, enemy tribes or whatever. And sometimes like if you have like a perfect stealth run, it will get ruined by melee attacking instead of stealth killing.
Yep.
So that's like it's a very maybe as it should be. It's a very fine little window where it's like press R1 to stealth kill.
Yep.
But so many times I felt like she would just do the normal whack.
And then you're screwed.
You're fucked.
Yep.
Oh my God. Drives me crazy. One good thing though, I do like that there's different components on the machines. So if you shoot them or attack them and you knock them off, you'll get rewarded with different resources.
A little bit of a Monster Hunter aspect.
Yeah, and they do. I mean, that was a deliberate sort of thing where they discussed, if something breaks off the model, that's kind of progress showing you that what you're doing is working.
Yep.
I guess. So I did that quite a lot. I liked the weapons that could prioritize that. I thought switching between weapons felt really tedious. Felt like there really should have been, I don't know, like a D-pad thing or something, but the D-pad is kind of occupied by all the other stuff. The traps are very useful by virtue of the enemy AI being very stupid. They always like walk right into it. It's so funny because like they're very visible, like the normal like mines or electro traps or whatever. They're very visible. Like just walk right into it. I think the enemy designs and the enemy placement are variable enough to continuously consider switching up. You have different outfits and stuff that have more resistances and weapons and modifications. You get those add-ons later on that can, so a little bit of variation. It's just like the longer these games go on, the more tedious it gets with that. Like, oh, I got to switch again, So completing the cauldrons on the map, you can actually eventually hack the creatures to help you in combat. You can even ride some of them. I think these are kind of like a better version of the vaults in Mass Effect Andromeda, where it's kind of like you're going into a dungeon that looks sort of like that, but you're being rewarded with something meaningful. Like I don't know. I think that was a successful aspect. Originally, Aloy was going to ride a horse around, but this changed to become a small number of machines she can ride, like there's like kind of buffalo ones or whatever. I think these controlled pretty poorly, personally, like kind of stiff. I think it would have been a little more effective if you had it like a singular, like named, like hacked mount, like
you had your own personal
torrent or aggro or whatever. I think that would have been like, oh, I remember when I first tamed you or whatever, like a little bit more of a connection, because they can break and be destroyed and stuff. So that's something to consider. There's like a whole skill tree they added for the re-release, which is to do with that, but I don't know, not that impactful. Other activities, you have like some hunting grounds, challenges, and bandit camps. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's just Ubisoft open world generic shit.
Yeah. Oh, I better check out this bandit camp.
Ugh. Whoever put in the first bandit camp,
needs to be arrested.
You really screwed games.
Tried in The Hague.
Yeah, Jesus.
Oh my God. Yeah, a problem that I encountered during one of these bandit camps, I'd like to address. After successfully luring out and killing, there's the bounty target, like, oh, this person burned our village or whatever, go get him, right? After triggering the cutscene, Aloy respawned at the center of the bandit camp surrounded by enemies. So I killed the one, because like you gotta assassinate the one guy, right? And then she just because it's acting under the impression that you cleared out the whole camp, and I was just like, well, I guess I'm fucked. Oh boy. Okay, so let's as far as the creatures go, what were some of your favorite or least favorite enemies to fight, hack, and ride?
I mean, I really like the I forget what they're called, like the shell walkers, like the giant turtle guys.
Crabs.
Yeah, or are they hermit crabs?
That's what I thought.
I thought they were turtles.
I thought they were hermit crabs.
Oh, interesting.
They got the big shell on their back.
Yeah.
No, those are cool.
And as much as like there were problems with enemies that fly in the air, I thought they were kind of intimidating, so I kind of liked them.
Yeah, definitely, like the storm birds or whatever. The chicken ones were really scary.
Yeah.
I liked the what was it, the stalkers?
Yep.
They have like camouflage. They hunt you in the jungle and stuff, kind of predatory. Pretty cool. And the later ones, like the thunder jaws, are like very imposing. Those are cool. Ones that I really didn't like are the ones that really get in your face constantly.
Yep.
And it's like, that's obviously on purpose, but because like the melee combat is so janky, it
right. So you're talking about like Ravagers and that sort of thing.
Yeah, the sawtooths. And the one I really hated was the fucking worm.
Yeah.
Those ones were awful.
I just feel like when it comes to the melee combat, I'm a little bit surprised about like how undercooked it was when it came to these like there are so many enemies that are right in your face.
Yes.
Right? I just feel like maybe there could have been more development with, maybe you could make your spear into different things. It could be lighter and faster or heavier and slower.
Yeah.
I feel like they could have just put movesets into it or made it more customizable.
Yeah.
And maybe you could have, battled these enemies. It would
like
have
different
just
stances or something.
Yeah, or something like that. I don't know.
I and in addition, so I mean, she's got the bow on the cover, right? The bow is that we've established that's kind of the main weapon. And I never really got to that like Legolas point where I was like, oh, I'm such a badass. Like I'm fucking smoking these guys. But it felt like sometimes it felt kind of off to me. Like the aiming or leading your targets felt, and I'm not sure how much of that was intentional.
I don't know. I'm not really sure. I thought the bow combat was good enough.
It was okay. Yeah. It was, but I just never felt like you should really just be like a machine
slinging them back, right?
Yeah, just going for it. The exploration and questing for some reason slightly reminiscent of Elder Scrolls to me in the first one. Did you get this at all? Like, it's a small vibe. I got a little shiver.
I think you're being generous.
Yeah, but I mean, like in terms of going up the mountains and stuff, it's very derpy.
Yeah. Jumping your way up mountains and hills.
And it's just like the third person force perspective, definitely, because I preferred playing Elder Scrolls in first person.
Right, sure.
A lot more fluidly animated movements and stuff like that. The skill trees, I think in the first one were totally fine.
Yep.
I think they felt like worthwhile upgrades to the experience. I really liked the time slowing while you're aiming.
Yeah, either like sliding or aiming or jumping. And when you're aiming with the bow, time slows down, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so that's one thing where you can kind of improve your aim a little bit.
Or I think there are other ones like critical striking when you're sneaking, that sort of thing.
Yeah, the double, triple shot, the disarming traps.
That's
the ability to preserve your weapon mods instead of breaking them. It's that kind of thing where it's great because it's I think they like worked backwards, and games where let's say like you have to earn the map or whatever. I always love that.
Yeah.
When it's just like normal features, they feel so satisfying once instead of giving it to you from the start.
Right.
The Frozen Wilds was the expansion to this. I did play it. It also
You did?
I did.
Wow.
So
you went through that pain, huh?
So yes, but this added, the dismount strike. You can jump off like one of the creatures and take out an enemy instantly. The ability to collect resources while mounted was absolutely huge. And the ability to dismantle your resources into half their shard value. So it's like I would, it made me glad that I played it after the fact, because these are like huge quality of life improvements.
So I played it without them.
Yes.
So yeah.
So my experience was marginally more positive than yours somehow.
That is funny.
There is also, interestingly enough, there's a dialogue wheel in these games. They allow you to ask basic questions about the world and occasionally choose between emotional, thoughtful, or confrontational approaches.
It doesn't end up doing anything.
Doesn't do anything.
I mean, I don't really have anything to say about it, right? Because it's like meaningless.
Well, I mean, I think there are certain key points where it's like kill or spare somebody, right? So that's something. But
we've made it clear on goddamn GameCube, I don't really like black and white moral choice stuff. Like,
right.
It's just you gotta have way more nuance to convince me.
And it's also very apparent, like, not that I wanted it to be more opaque, but there's like next to the emotional response, there's a heart. Next to the rational response, there's a brain.
It's telling you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, which do I want to do, a heart run or a brain run?
Dude, it doesn't matter.
I don't know. Okay. So, are you ready to get into story here?
Oh, no. Yeah, well, sure.
So this was Guerrilla's first major foray into story and quest design, because Killzone, I believe, I haven't played them, but it seems a lot more straightforward.
I mean, yeah, they're straightforward. I mean, the first one's pretty good, so...
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Yeah.
So, damn, should have covered that.
Yeah, right?
Very interestingly to me, the guy, John Gonzalez, was a writer who worked on Fallout New Vegas.
Wow. Okay.
So he used to work for Obsidian. He believed that Fallout is about how we repeat mistakes over and over again, whereas Horizon is a much more hopeful story. So, I'm glad he just didn't do Fallout again, at least. It's a little bit of contrast there. I would say that the side quest design is relatively engaging. It's like it's like a minor step up of like Fallout 4, where go to dungeon and shoot enemies.
Right.
There's at least some level of storytelling involved.
It's much better in this game than the sequel.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. There's like, because you're still kind of not as familiar with the world, so you may be a little more curious about how people live in it and stuff like that. There is, I think my favorite one is there's one with a guy who drinks robot blood.
Yeah.
And he starts to experience like visions of the past and future. I'm like, wow, I have more of this shit.
Yeah,
This is
please.
awesome. So Aloy, as I mentioned, she's an outcast, abandoned at birth and discovered or adopted by Rost. I wanted to point out that, so I started this game at your urging, I think a couple years ago, right? And I got past the intro, right? And when I picked it up again, I started new game and it skipped the entire intro because I was like, I totally forget how this starts. I'm curious how it starts. And it just totally skipped it. Like, all right, well, that was kind of weird, but I'm in it now. Rost is the guy who he lost his own daughter. And it's kind of left nebulous what Aloy's backstory is at first. So did this mystery compel you at all?
I mean, not really. I
feel like I've just seen it a lot.
Yeah, it's I don't think it's bad.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's fine. As far as like I can kind of analyze this intro, you were booted out of your tribe as a baby because of like where you were born or something like that. You were born in front of a monument or a door or something.
She was just like never accepted.
She wasn't accepted into the tribe, and so this guy, I guess, who lost a daughter kind of adopts you as his.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Right?
It's very, playing the hits.
Right, sure, yeah.
Classic.
Kind of feel good, right? It's fine.
Well, Harry Potter, Luke Skywalker, just not knowing who their parents are.
Right,
I need to know more, right? So Aloy, you run around her as a little kid. It's way too long. She discovers the Focus, which is kind of your Batman detective mode for these games, in some overgrown ruins. I think so. This is a successful sort of differentiation where, because she's an outcast, it kind of naturally sets her apart, makes her unique, because she doesn't share their fear of technology. So she's at least,
So the Nora tribe, they have a fear of technology, right? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely, because they're very kind of rustic in the hills people.
Right.
Ross tells Aloy that to learn where she came from, she needs to join them and try to piece together the mystery. So you, after this extremely long intro sequence, Aloy is undergoing this rite of passage to, kind of prove herself to the tribe. And this is interrupted by an attack of cultists. And I actually like this scene a lot where they come and they kill Rost and they fuck up everything.
Yep.
And you have to fight them off in a blizzard with a Gatling gun. I was like, oh, this game kind of rips sometimes.
Yeah.
That was a high mark for me there. And so this is where we get into all this ridiculous imagery and stuff. So Rost is killed by the cult leader named Helis, and the matriarchs of the tribe show Aloy that she was found as a baby behind a sealed door. They make her a seeker, I guess, which is basically the Mass Effect Spectre, right?
Wasn't that also a Dark Brotherhood delineation, right? You were the seeker of the Dark Brotherhood, isn't that right?
Maybe.
Isn't that
I
right in
remember
Oblivion?
Listener.
Oh, is it Listener?
When you listen to the Night Mother.
Yeah.
Man, those games are fucking awesome. Anyway. This is so... there was at least a little bit of like kind of lore you had to unpack here, where she meets the adjacent Karja tribe, which are a former imperialist nation who worship the sun. And so is that where the horizon comes from?
I have no idea.
Because that's the only connection I could find.
We were, not to go too much like off the beaten path here, but we were discussing that off mic only a few minutes ago. And we were like, why is this called Horizon?
That's all I can think of.
What I was thinking of is like, I was giving this game a lot of rope, but I was saying, does it mean like there's something on the horizon? You're going to, it's like a term of phrase.
But that's like as vague as like
But wasn't
Anthem.
Event Horizon a movie, right?
Event Horizon is a movie, yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, okay, so yeah, so she meets these. So there, I have a problem with this, which you won't necessarily it won't affect you as much because it's a Game of Thrones thing. So they talk about this deposed king, and they keep calling him the Mad King, which is a huge like factor in Game of Thrones. Like he was the overthrown previous king of the nation, right? And it's like I was like, dude, have a little shame, because this came out like right in Game of Thrones fever and everything. I have no doubt in my mind that that's where they got it from, and it's like his son took over, and it's
Heavy borrowing.
Heavy borrowing. So they live in this. So he's basically trying to reform their image, repair some of the damage they did as an aspiring empire, right? What did you think about the setting where they congregate Meridian? It's kind of like the major city.
But one of the problems with Horizon Zero Dawn is all the cities feel kind of dead and like not lived in. That was at least my initial impression when I played it, like back in 2017.
Yeah,
it just feels like it's tough to nail down where, you know, you don't really get to see how people live. The main characters, it feels very obvious they're the main characters versus the townspeople.
Yeah,
you don't go in anyone's homes. It doesn't really matter. It just feels a little bit lifeless.
I mean, so you do a little bit of questing here and there, but it never feels as compelling as it should. I think.
All characters don't feel equal.
Right. And you see also it was originally going to be like a much bigger and more central location, like like the Imperial City or something like that. Definitely feels pretty dead. And so essentially this is where sort of the central conflict comes in, where this is absolutely, I feel ridiculous saying this, but the opposing faction called the Shadow Karja, also known as Eclipse. So they are, I guess, adherents to the Father's kingdom, like where they were on his side, you know, during the split, right? So they're kind of driven into exile, and they are being manipulated by an entity known as Hades, not the Supergiant game. So Aloy is sold out by a scavenger named Olin. So he was kind of responsible for the attack on the rite of passage there. His family was captured by the Eclipse because of it was essentially all set in motion because of her resemblance to a scientist who worked on these, basically was somehow entangled in the fall of civilization.
Sure. So
that's what Aloy's connection to all this is. You see this woman, Elizabeth Sobek. She's in the holograms and everything like that. As you explore sort of the ruins of the old world, you kind of figure out that she was a roboticist, and her work was eventually exploited for like military applications, right? Swarms of military robots went rogue eventually, as they always do, and they begin sustaining themselves by eating like people and biomass, you know, or animals or whatever.
You know, this sounds maybe kind of gross, but don't you... I don't want to say I wish this game was more visceral, but wouldn't that land a little harder if the game was a little bit more scary or like mature?
Oh, absolutely.
Where it feels very delicate, like, oh, they ate everybody, but whatever. It's very colorful. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't really feel as like scary and gory and investing as you'd want, right?
That's the major, and I feel like it's kind of the central concept of this whole thing is very at odds with itself.
Right. I mean, can you imagine those cute like chicken monsters just eating people? Like, it just doesn't happen in the game, right?
No. Like you never see, I mean, you see bodies, but you don't see like dismembered corpses.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like if it didn't necessarily have to be super violent, but it maybe should have been less. I don't know. It's like pick a lane almost.
Yeah, pick a lane.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's kind of the backstory there. Elizabeth was consulted for a contingency plan called Zero Dawn. That's where the title
namesake
comes from. And with the help of the character Silence, who's in their scavenger, he has kind of a checkered past. Aloy uncovers the truth about Zero Dawn beneath the Eclipse capital of Sunfall. So Zero Dawn was a massive undertaking developed by Elizabeth, where a system of AIs, and I was getting like MGS4 vibes at this point. I'm like, wait a second, this is a little anime, named for the Greek gods and titans. They would eventually govern the restoration and repopulation of planet Earth, right? Human frailty, there's a couple kind of, you can tell in the recordings, there's some jackasses on the team, naturally caused the plan to fail. A lot of great misinterpretations of the project's original will, which is also very MGS. Significant loss of the stored knowledge that was in there. So how did you feel about this revelation of Zero Dawn?
So I thought this was one of the few like compelling story moments of the game.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about earlier in the episode where it was a twist to me where this game took place in the United States.
Yeah.
I believe it's revealed actually right here in the main story that it is.
Yeah.
So this, like I said, I find this to be really the only like compelling moment where you are an ancestor or I guess a clone of Elizabeth, right? And Zero Dawn was her project to essentially restore life on Earth. And of course, like it gets fucked up by evil humans or whatever, and you have to kind of continue her legacy.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's fine. I don't have any problem with it. Like I said, I think back in 2017, I remember telling people about my opinion on this game, and what it was this game is fine. You don't have to play it, but there are enough feels in this moment where you might want to give it a try.
Sure.
And that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah. I didn't think it was necessarily incredibly executed, but it was surprising, at least.
Right. Where I feel like, you know what I did like about this game? I spend so much time making fun of it that sometimes I lose the plot a little.
Yeah.
I like how they use the namesake in the game. Like so many games it feels irrelevant or it's too obvious. I like how Zero Dawn it's not the name of a place, it's the name of the plan that they had in place to save the Earth in the event of this happening.
Right.
So I like it. I think it's fine.
I think it's like this is maybe 1,000 years later.
Yeah,
like a huge amount of time. So the thing that is sort of setting the plot in motion, called Hades, was designed by this like evangelical guy who was instigating like a system reboot, I guess. In the event, humanity seemed to be developing down the wrong path. Like, so if Zero Dawn gets fucked up, here's the reboot button, right?
Yep.
And so I felt like also this part with, because Helis is listening to Hades, it reminded me a lot of like Saren and Sovereign in Mass Effect. Yeah. Very similar dynamic. Silent was actually the founder of Eclipse and made a deal with Hades to learn more. Kind of an interesting sort of Garden of Eden dilemma here. He's going to extreme lengths in the pursuit of knowledge, to his detriment. So that was kind of interesting. But Aloy is captured by Helis, who again is the leader of the movement. I like this part a lot, actually, where she gets thrown into a gladiator arena and all her weapons get taken away. I'm like, oh, thank God. It's like it happens in Fallen Order too, you get that situation.
I feel like this game rips in a couple of moments that I forgot about.
Yeah,
right?
But the problem is it's just like way too short.
Yeah,
like if you had to do an entire like fight and like scavenge for weapons or something, it would have been awesome, right?
Yep.
You get rescued by Silence. I think it's just like too much happens between this moment and the finale. You really need to have that like low point.
Yeah,
I've said this before. I said it in God of War a couple times. You need to have that one low point where all is lost, and then you got to keep your foot on the gas all the way through to the end. Where it happens in some of the best movies. Because you have to go all the way back to the North stronghold. And then the Siege of Meridian happens shortly thereafter. Did you think the final battle was an appropriate climax?
That's so hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I think at least gameplay wise, I think it's fine. I think story wise, there's too much going on.
Yeah.
I believe this is the part where you're in charge of a bunch of siege engines and that sort. Yeah, I think it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think we're talking about the second game in another episode, but I think what this game did, they had just enough moments that rip, or just enough moments where you feel cool, or there are just enough set pieces where you feel engaged with the gameplay.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like, what else are you gonna do at this point? Like, you gotta have a big battle. You gotta have a big battle with the robots. And I did like also that NPCs from the side quest show up.
Yeah, so they give you a little bit of like a pat on the back for helping other people out. It all kind of comes together.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how contingent it is upon doing the side quests. I'm not sure, like kind of like the Battle of Bruma.
Sure.
Thing. A lot of Elder Scrolls stuff going on this week, but no. And I think so. Of all the NPCs, the one that kind of stuck with me the most is like the alcoholic. You know that guy, like the big guy with the mohawk.
You talking about Aaron?
Yeah, and he has a great line towards the end which resonated with me a lot, because you run into him very early in the story, and he's kind of like the big shot, you know, just passing through, tough guy. And he says, I thought I was a big shot chatting up a pretty girl, but now I can see I was lucky to have a moment of your time. I'm like, that's a beautiful thing to say. That was like one of the rare like lines in this game that like touched me. I was like, what a nice thing to say.
I go back to what I said in 2017, where a lot of this game treads water and it's fine.
Yeah.
But there's just enough feels in here, or there are just enough set pieces where I said to folks, you might want to play it.
Right.
Give it a shot.
Yeah. So I mean, this ends pretty conclusively. I thought, you know, it's sort of a tough line to walk, where you were talking about you never really see the robots ripping people to pieces, right?
Yeah.
Even in the ending here, it's hard for me, even though you've been doing it the entire game, like the act of Aloy murdering somebody is so like it just
feels
happens.
off message.
Yeah, because she's such a bright and cheerful character, and like so at the end she, you know, obviously Helis killed Ross, her father figure, and she sort of gingerly pokes him, you know, through the neck with a spear, and like that's the end, like almost like hesitantly, and it's like, yeah, she's a good person, but it's just like you got to do the deed at some point, man.
Yeah, I guess.
In these life or death situations.
I thought the final boss was kind of weird.
With Hades?
Yeah, where like it feels like you're fighting a giant Metal Gear, and I'm just and I'm just like launching blast sling bombs at this thing.
Well,
and
if
just
you thought that final boss was weird.
Right.
So I think the ending was pretty poignant too, where she kind of discovers Elizabeth's body, like overgrown by flowers and stuff. And it's really like, to me, it feels like it doesn't need a sequel at all.
Yeah.
If this game was just the way it was and it was just an odd curiosity, I would have been totally fine. Would have been totally fine. There is a post credits where Silence captures Hades, so it's obviously something's gonna happen next. But
oh no,
in terms of, I really think this game could have stood by itself and just. The disease of more. Everyone goes back one more time than they should.
You had a good word for it. Did you call it a curiosity?
Yeah,
interesting.
If this had no sequels,
it was just it lived on its own, and that was it.
Like you would go back to it 10 years, like 2027, be like, yeah, it's kind of an interesting game.
Yeah,
right?
Yep.
Yeah, you should play it, but. All right. So I'm getting into my final thoughts.
Yeah, sure.
I think there are some great concepts. Some great impactful moments. I think overall it's very often let down by the poor dialogue.
Yeah.
Poor characterization. Really definitely should have been half as long.
Yeah.
I think it's way too long. It's too much shit. I mean, the map is manageable, but there's just too much shit for my taste. There is a really weird quote I found in the pre-production where I think it was John Gonzalez who said this, where he said, Aloy's superpower is really her genetic connection to Elizabeth Sobek. And I'm like, that's like, okay, so that's really just defining who she is. And I was like, not like her curiosity or something like that, because that I felt like was her main strength versus everybody else. Like everyone is like a
stuck in their ways,
a Luddite, like a fear of technology, and she's the only one. I'm like, it feels like you maybe didn't fully understand your own character here.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was
weird. I
weird.
feel like her discovering that she's the descendant of Elizabeth, that's that's not a superpower. That's just like a plot point,
Right.
Or that's the kind of what makes her the important heroic figure, right?
Well,
I don't understand what he means by superpower.
It only really adds a wrinkle into her character where it's like, can I live up to this person and do I want to? You know what I mean?
Right.
That's what was interesting to me. And another kind of weird thing about her character is that she's an outcast, but somehow she's very well equipped to handle like complex social situations. She would
That's
be
funny.
like completely socially maladjusted.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, sure, Ross was like a normal guy. He could carry a conversation, but if you've only known one person your entire life,
You're going to be a weirdo.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
I don't know. She was just like, it was when you get into these situations where you have the dialogue wheel come up and you have the different options that you can take. She's talking like a psychologist, like, don't panic, everybody feels this way at a certain age. Like, what are you talking about?
You don't know that.
Anything. I don't know, man. There's some odd choices in this game. I don't really so this game, in terms of the gameplay loop, like we've discussed, it's like fun enough. It has its problems, but it's fun enough, right? I don't feel like the concepts this game deals with are so lofty by comparison.
Yeah.
Like in terms of survival versus, like the reboot of the universe, it's fucking crazy.
Doesn't it, like, it's hard for me to kind of put my thumb on my feelings about this game because I've said like across the course of this episode, I think the combat rips enough where I have fun playing it when it starts ripping and when it starts popping off.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of generic side questing. There's a lot of generic crafting. There's a lot of generic go defeat bandit camp.
Yeah.
And it's just, but also the game, I believe this is a teen rated game.
Yeah.
It's not visceral or scary enough for me to really get into the world was decimated by this, and now as an ancestor I have to help this.
Right.
It's just I don't know. Is it too many ideas? Is it not staying in a lane? Is it perhaps that maybe tonally or the direction of the game has issues, but the elements are fine? I don't really know.
It's kind of, I'm not sure how many, they opened up the floor of the staff to ideas. I'm not sure if they maybe just took too many of them.
Maybe.
I don't know. I think it definitely could have, if you'll pardon the pun, it could have used a little more focus.
Yo.
You know what I mean? I guess maybe I think it's somewhat unique and memorable.
If it existed on its own, yes. I think I'm a little bit colored by the
what comes afterwards.
My opinion is colored by the miserable sequel.
I think for me this doesn't quite make the cut as like a cult classic. It could have. It was like a little bit tighter.
Yeah.
I'm giving this one a C plus.
Okay.
I don't know how you feel.
That's, I think back in the day I said B minus.
Yeah.
I think I am gonna say C plus, but if you catch me on a good day when I'm in the feels, maybe B minus.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you think about like Aloy as like a character too?
I think I think I am going to lean into. I think the voice actor did her best with what she was given.
Yes,
but I think there's just too many lanes going on for me to be really like into this.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's kind of like, because she's really like the main. You're with her most of the time.
Well,
and
would you say like she's a little bit too like good at everything? Where like is always the voice of reason, is the most talented, like is the hero of history. She doesn't have enough flaws.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a growing pain we're at with storytelling right now, where we want to have more positive female representation, but it's not like she doesn't really like. I remember a big thing coming out about, you remember when the first Wonder Woman movie came out?
Yeah,
there was a lot of positive like kind of press for it, especially when it comes to like she has like a relationship, and it's not like she's like she's not sexless, like she's just a normal female character that anyone could look up to.
Right, sure.
Has her own maybe flaws or foibles, but yeah, I guess I would consider Aloy like, obviously not like a Mario or Link, but maybe like a kind of a Lara Croft tier character. One of those. I think in terms of she's definitely not like the main problem with these games.
No.
But it's like,
that's a good point. I don't think Aloy and the voice acting job, I don't think that's the problem.
no, it's just like a lot of weird pinholes here and there.
I think it's a direction problem or
Yeah.
like a higher level issue.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. All right. Well,
Are those all your thoughts on Horizon?
those are my thoughts. It's a C+, and buckle up for next time.
Anyway, so yeah, that was our discussion on Horizon Zero Fun.
Wait, would you recommend it still?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I don't know. You know what? No, because that would like implore you to play the second one.
It opens up a can of worms.
Yeah,
maybe if before the sequel had come out, I might have said yes.
You know what?
I'm going with no.
I think your quote, is what we're going to end with, where you said if it existed on its own as its own curiosity, yes.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. So no. Anyway, that's going to do it for Horizon Zero Dawn, and we will see you guys next time for Horizon Forbidden West. Thank you.